The Colle system is a simple and reliable opening for white that focuses on building a strong central structure. It avoids heavy theory and gives you a clear, easy-to-follow setup in every game. With its flexible plans and smooth development, the Colle system helps you reach stable positions and launch effective attacks with minimal effort. In the Colle system, you begin by playing pawn to d4, pawn to d5, knight to f3, knight to f6, pawn to e3, no matter what black chooses. For example, if black plays pawn to e6, you calmly continue with bishop to d3. If black follows with pawn to c5, you respond with pawn to c3, completing your basic structure. This setup looks somewhat similar to the London system, but the middle game plans are quite different. Many players mention that they struggle to remember long opening variations, but with the Colle system that problem disappears. The entire opening is based on a simple, fixed structure, almost like forming a small pyramid in the center. Once this structure is built, you develop your pieces smoothly and then castle. After moves like knight to c6, you play knight to d2, and the plan remains consistent. Prepare the central break with pawn to a4. I will show you how to carry this out effectively. This setup also keeps you completely safe from early tricks or sudden attacks, giving you a very secure position from the start. At this stage, black usually develops their bishop to either e7 or d6, which are the two main sub-variations of the Colle system. We will examine both, beginning with a line where black plays bishop to a7. After completing your development, you simply castle, and black usually castles as well. Now you continue with queen to e2, another typical move that supports your plan of preparing the central advance pawn to a4. You wait for the right moment, and once pawn to a4 is played, the position often transforms into a strong attacking setup. From there, the pawn can advance further to pawn to a5, creating pressure in the center. What looked passive at first suddenly becomes very aggressive for white. In this position, the most common reply from black, according to databases, is pawn to b6, which is logical because black wants to develop the bishop to b7. But this move also weakens the diagonal, giving you the perfect chance to strike immediately with pawn to a4. Surprisingly, this puts black under serious pressure, and many games end quickly from this position. Your key idea is simple. Advance the pawn to e5. Unless black captures on e4, you push pawn to e5 on your next move. If black captures first with pawn takes e4, you recapture, and your position becomes far more active. You open an important diagonal for your bishop, and your knight in the center puts pressure on black's pawn on c5 and other weaknesses, leaving black quite uncomfortable. This is the power of the Colle system's straightforward setup turning into a dynamic attack. If black continues exchanging pawns in the center, they actually lose the game immediately. After queen to e4, you create a powerful double attack. Queen to h7 threatens checkmate, and black will also lose the knight on the next move. This gives you a very simple win. Let's step back a few moves. If black avoids capturing the central pawn and instead captures the other pawn, there is an important detail to notice. Instead of recapturing right away, you insert the strong intermediate move pawn to e5. This forces the black knight to retreat. Once the knight moves back, only then do you recapture your pawn on d4. Now you have extra space, black's pieces become uncoordinated, and the black light square bishop is completely passive, giving you a clearly better position. Returning to the main critical moment, black often decides to capture on e4, even though this only activates your knight and improves your position. We already know that capturing on d4 is disastrous because of queen to e4, so many opponents simply continue developing with bishop to b7. On the surface, this looks perfectly normal, but here white has a sudden and very dangerous attacking idea. The key move is knight from f3 to g5. This jump creates immediate pressure on the h7 square and prepares a direct checkmating attack. This is where the Colle system becomes surprisingly sharp and powerful. Your idea behind the move knight from f3 to g5 is simple and very powerful. On the next move, you want to capture on h7, open the diagonal for your light square bishop, and together with your knight, attack the pawn on h7, aiming for a quick checkmate. This jump is surprisingly difficult for black to defend against. In most games, black reacts with pawn to h6, trying to chase your knight away, but instead of retreating, you simply capture on f6. After black recaptures with the bishop, you continue with queen to e4, creating a direct and very strong attacking threat along the diagonal toward the black king. Black has only one defensive move here, pawn to g6, but this actually collapses black's position. You break the king's pawn shield completely with knight takes a6, removing the key pawn that protects the king. Then you play queen takes g6, checking the king and threatening queen to h7 mate. so black is forced to block with bishop to g7. But your attack continues. You play queen to h7, followed by bishop to g6 with check, and soon the black king is driven out into the open. After king to f6, the only move to keep guarding the bishop, there is no immediate mate, but the position is completely winning. With bishop to h5, the evaluation is overwhelmingly in white's favor, threatening ideas like queen to g6 check, and black is practically helpless against the attack. In this attacking line, the black bishop remains very weak, and threats like bishop takes h6 are coming soon. Black's position becomes overwhelmingly difficult to defend. For example, in one game, after knight to e7, white simply captured on h6. When black tried to defend, white continued with pawn to f4, queen to d5, and bishop to g5, and black resigned because checkmate was unavoidable. Now, let's return to the starting structure of the Colle system. White builds a central pyramid of pawns and develops the pieces in a simple, natural order. We already examined the line where black plays bishop to e7. The second common option is bishop to d6, which also makes sense since black is developing while preparing to castle here, you castle, and black usually castles as well. However, I've also noticed a drawback to the standard move queen to e2. Black can reply with pawn to e5, because the black bishop on d6 controls that square. Black can challenge the center immediately, leading to massive exchanges and a completely equal position. There is nothing wrong with equality, but as white, you often want to keep some winning chances instead of simplifying everything. For that reason, instead of queen to e2, I recommend a different move. Pawn takes c5. If you look closely, this position resembles the Slav defense, but reversed. White has the same structure, but with an extra tempo. This gives you active and promising play right from the start. In the Slav defense, the sequence pawn takes c5 followed by pawn to e4 is a very common strategic idea, and here you can use the same plan. But with white enjoying an extra tempo because your pawn on e4 controls important central squares, black often feels uncomfortable. The pawn may advance further or capture on d5, and both options create pressure. You can maintain this pressure by continuing with your usual move, queen to e2, keeping all possibilities open. From there, you may decide to push the pawn forward to chase away the black knight, depending on how black reacts. After checking many games in the database, the most common response from black is simply to capture on e4. Players often choose exchanges when they are unsure what to do. After pawn takes e4, you recapture confidently with knight takes e4. This develops your knight to an active square where it attacks both the black bishop and the black knight. Because of this double pressure, black usually continues trading with bishop takes e4, and in the resulting position, white has clearly gained the upper hand. Your pieces are better placed, and you benefit from the extra tempo you had from the start. Height enjoys open diagonals for the bishops, and the centralized bishop exerts strong pressure across the board. Black struggles to develop the queenside pieces. While white has more space and easier development, often, black trades queens on d1, which only allows white to place the rook on a central file. Black still faces the problem of developing the queenside bishop safely, so they play rook to d8 to prepare. You continue naturally with bishop to f4, bringing the bishop out. When black responds with bishop to d7, the decisive moment arrives. Bishop to c7. This move attacks the rook, which cannot move without losing the bishop, effectively refuting black's entire plan. No matter how black responds, they face a massive material deficit, and white wins.